I hear this statement a lot. We're a church, not a brand. Well, as we learned in our last video, a brand is a person's gut feeling about an organization, product, service, even a church. In addition, we also learned that a key ingredient that goes into creating a positive gut feeling is consistent recognition of your church's involvement. So what is consistent recognition? Now, before you get too carried away, I'm not talking about breaking out the megaphones and announcing to the world, look, we're awesome. We did this for these folks, and we did that for those folks. We're pretty sweet. Or other forms of blatant self-promotion. Please never do this. Just don't do it. The point is, it's critical for individuals to know who is behind your specific initiative. Because over time, it builds trust. And trust is critical. Let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, I'll never forget going over to my grandma's house. Without fail, every time I was there, she had an endless supply of chocolate. Chocolate of all kinds. But there was always a very special box of chocolate. It was wrapped in fancy red paper, and underneath was an immaculate white shiny box. When you lifted the lid, the aroma was outstanding. I'll never forget it. It was Grandma's private supply of Fannie Mae dark chocolate buttercreams. I don't have words to describe how good they are. It didn't matter how big the mountain of chocolate was surrounding Grandma's Fannie Mae. We skipped it all to go to that one. How did I know which one to look for? It always looked the same, and I knew if I spotted it, I was in for a special experience. In the branding world, we'd call that a visual identity. And according to a Forbes article, a brand identity is comprised of many qualities, but the visual identity is arguably the most important. Why should a visual identity matter for your church? Here's a scenario. Imagine with me for a minute that a church in your community decided to help an elderly member of your community by raking up leaves in her yard. You're driving by and you glance out your window and you see an elderly woman sitting on the porch and a group of kids working hard, cleaning her yard with an incredible amount of diligence. Without any visual cues, you'll think, wow, what an incredibly unselfish group of kids. Now, let's replay that scenario. Imagine that you see the same group of kids raking the elderly lady's yard, except this time you see a van parked out front that's painted a unique color. There in the yard, kids wearing t-shirts that are the same unique color as the van. And as you pass the last kid, you see the name of the church supporting this effort. A connection has now been established between the action, raking the leaves, and the organization who's responsible for it. Now you think, what a fabulous organization. They have a lot of incredibly unselfish kids. And that church established a nugget of trust with you. How would you describe that church to a friend was just altered forever? Now imagine, a few days later you drive by the church. That same unique colors on the signage out front. In addition to connecting that trust with the name of the church, now you've automatically connected it to your location as well. This is why a unique visual identity for your church is so important. So what goes into creating one? Well, for starters, my favorite branding quote ever is, "Consistency is better than being better." I'm 90% sure that it came from a presentation I attended with Dr. Flint McLaughlin of Marketing Experiments. But what does that statement mean? It means that even if your church doesn't have the same visual appeal as a brand new Silicon Valley startup, it's better that it remains consistent than to constantly be changing it up so it looks better. What should be consistent? Well, there are a lot of things, but some of the big heavy hitters are your logo. Does it look the same on the front of your church as it does on your website? Your font, typography. your icons that you use all over, from your bulletin to your website to social media posts, types of photos you use, how you use them, your color palette, contrast. It's very rare that we see a church maintain any level of consistency on these things. Another thing to be especially aware of are pre-made templates, because it can easily lead to a hodgepodge with absolutely no consistency. Remember, consistency is better than being better. Here's an exercise for you. Take a screen capture of your website, your social media pages, your Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, etc. The signage in front of your church, your bulletin. Print them all out, spread them out on a big table. Ask yourself, do these all look like they're from the same organization? If not, that's a problem. If you want to take it even deeper, cover up your logo and any identifying information. Ask a friend who's not associated with your church to identify which are from the same organization and which elements are not. If they can't do it, your church is struggling what branding experts would call an identity crisis. The payback from an effort such as this to improve your church's visual identity are long-term, but this is critical. I once asked a friend who owns a nursery when the best time to plant a tree was. His immediate response? 20 years ago. But he also said, the next best time is right now. The same's true for your church. Don't wait another minute. You'll be glad you did it. In later posts, we'll discuss additional ways to build and reinforce your community's gut feeling about your church. Make sure you don't miss those future updates by subscribing. And if we can help, we'd love to work directly with your church. Just contact us. Let's have a conversation. Until next time, this is Chris Dellen with Rethinking Evangelism.